Okay, so welcome to part 2 of this N-part series, I guess. Well, it's going to be up to 4 parts between now and Christmas. And for the remainder of the semester, we're going to be actually deconstructing existing video games, commercial video games, and talking about how they work. And a lot of the, kind of really looking at how the game is designed, looking at the, based on that design, what then AI techniques did they use, and subsequently a lot of the smaller, more intricate elements that they actually introduced just to, well, largely deceive the player. Let's face it, for students who are in my final year game behaviour class, it's, while I'm talking about game AI, it's also an awful lot about game design, because AI for video games doesn't need to be that intelligent, but what you do need to do is just introduce enough intelligence that you can fool a player into thinking that characters are a lot smarter than they really are. And in fact, in last week's class, I did briefly talk about some of the methods that are used for the Batman Arkham series, so now we're going to go into it a little bit more. Quick show of hands, how many people here have actually played one of the Arkham games at some point? So there's a couple of you that haven't, but by and large most of you have. So the first sort of 5-10 minutes of this are going to be a little bit arduous because I'm going to have to kind of explain this all. And sort of these are all the games that they've made, etc., etc. But then we'll start getting into the kind of juicy bit of it. Everybody here knows who I am. We already did this in the previous talk. Comp Sci lecturer, like to talk about AI in video games, but that's the obligatory slide that's in there. And what are these talks about? So the first one, for those of you who turned up, you'll recall it was actually about AI research that's conducted in video games. What people such as myself like to do as part of our research interests is developing algorithms and then using video games as benchmarks to assess how good they are. And we kind of deconstructed stuff on the likes of Pac-Man, Super Mario, we looked at StarCraft, and we looked at Unreal Tournament. And we're going to come back to this sort of stuff in future talks throughout the year. But for the time being, we're going to go back into looking at actual commercial video games. And we started off with the Arkham series. So, for the handful of people in the room who don't know what it is, it's a series that's based on Batman. Hence, that chap there, and of course, on my t-shirt, and on the opening slide, Batman, right? And it's developed by a studio called Rocksteady, which is based in the UK. They're over in Highgate in London. And it's something I think, I don't know, on a personal level, I'm actually quite proud of it. It's like, yeah, an awesome Batman video game that's been made by British people, because British people are the people that make good things. Well, as any of you who have probably played earlier video games based on comic book adaptations, you'll know that by and large, they're crap. I think that was about as close to an academic judgment I could give on it. I think probably with the exception of the X-Men Legends series, which I quite enjoyed. And the adaptation of X-Men Origins Wolverine, the video game, was about 10 times better than the film. Seriously, the film's appalling. I absolutely hate the movie, but actually playing the video game is definitely worth an investment. It's quite a lot of fun. But, so the key thing there, Arkham's actually been really successful. They've sold over 20 million copies of the series so far. And it's kind of achieved this kind of almost legendary status within the current generation of gaming that very few franchises attain. And considering that it's actually based on an existing IP, and the video game industry is sort of renowned for butchering IPs, that's just simply added to the acclaim that's already got. So it started off with the first game in the series, which is called Arkham Asylum. And the plot of it is relatively straightforward. It's loosely based on the Grant Morrison graphic novel of the same name, in which Batman has to go to Arkham Asylum, which is this hospital. It's an insane asylum. It's an insane asylum for pretty much the worst characters that Gotham City has to offer. And in the original story, it's all about how Batman gets trapped in the asylum and he has to fight his way back out. And that's more or less what happens in the game. In fact, I've actually put together a copy of the launch trailer just to let you see, give you a refresher. Let's see how the volume works on this.
Honey, I'm home. Not so tight, boy.
so much better.
I've got your scent. For one night, Batman's greatest enemies will get their chance at revenge.
Arkham Asylum remains under lockdown. Its staff at the mercy of the rampaging inmates.
You didn't think it would be easy, did you?
I will break you, Batman!
Die, you big ugly fat!
Don't do it again!
I can take it. I can take anything you throw at me, Bats. Ready for the next round?
Take the key to the crotch.
It says coming August 25th, but it's been out for a few years now. You can pretty much get it on Steam. Almost, I think every sale that Steam now does, you can probably pick up both Arkham Asylum and Arkham City for about £2 each. So I suppose this is my moment to then say, if you don't own them already, please do so, because it's really worth it. It's actually well worth the investment. So that first one kind of naturally was very successful. I'm a big fan of it. Completed the game 100%. I spent a ridiculous amount of time playing it. Also because some of us are old enough that we actually remember when Kevin Conroy, who's the voice of Batman in this, was also the voice of Batman in the animated series, and nobody's done it better since. Christian Bale. I can sound like a damaged Hoover and pretend I'm Batman, but you know what? No, that man adds character to it. So, moving on swiftly, and this is really, so I've already we've kind of introduced Arkham Asylum. Arkham City is also the other game that we're going to talk about today. These are the two games I'm going to focus on. And Arkham City is more or less just in terms of narrative, it's a direct sequel to it. It's picking up a few months after Arkham Asylum finished. Because, well, the big problem is, spoiler alert, Arkham Asylum's sort of a bit of a mess afterwards. You can't really have all these supervillains fighting on one island by themselves and then just hope that you can just put a couple of, plaster boards over it and go, it'll be fine. They kind of make a bit of a mess of the place. So Arkham City's about what Gotham looks to do, or actually the mayor of Gotham he takes the Narrows, which is a whole segment of Gotham City, which is their slums, and turns it into a penitentiary. And says, actually, the biggest problem that we had was because we left them isolated on their own out there, and they then kidnapped all our guards and did horrible things to the staff and everything else. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to leave them in their own area of the city with a massive wall around it and hope they all kill each other. Now, any of us who are old enough to remember John Carpenter's Escape from New York will realize, oh my God, that's actually the exact same plot. So in this case, Batman is quite adamant that something's awry here, something's not quite right, and gets himself thrown into Arkham City. And then subsequently finds out what's going on and actually begins to fight his way out. And in the spirit of things, I also got the launch trailer for that game too. I needed to pad this talk out somehow.
How does it feel, Wayne, to stand on the very stones that ran with your parents' blood? Do you feel sad?
Bruce.
Full of rage? Or does that outfit help bury your feelings, hiding your true self?
You become what you've always fought against, and I will stop you.
I have powerful friends, Batman.
This is just the beginning.
Why do you work alone, Batman? I believe you enjoy the loneliness.
I assume that you thought yourself untouchable.
Looks like Batman himself is exiting the building. Mayday!
Well, as you can see, no one is untouchable.
We are the future of Arkham! We are the future of Gotham!
If you solve the room ahead, you save them. If you don't, then they die.
You must show you are willing to take a life to save the world.
You cannot stop me. Soon I will command forces beyond your comprehension.
Are you gonna be a good boy and give up nicely? Bravo!
I don't think you need to pre-order it. You should be good by now. Personally, based on my own playtime of both, I really enjoy the, in terms of the story, I mean, the story's certainly a lot broader. They introduce a lot more of the characters that we didn't see in the first one. So in the first game, it largely revolves around the Joker, but we also get introduced to the likes of the Scarecrow, Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, Victor Zsasz. Whereas in the second one, we begin to see a lot of characters who they didn't bother to introduce in the first one yet, largely because the roster list was already so big. So as you saw there, we see the Penguin, Ra's al Ghul, Mr. Freeze as well. Catwoman has a big part in it, and also Robin turns up for about 5 minutes. I'm not joking, literally about 5 minutes. He comes in and he goes, "I want to help," and Batman says no. He's like, "All right." Doesn't come back, because they don't want it to be a two-player game. Personally, while I enjoyed the fact that the map was larger, because you've now actually got this whole district of Gotham to fly around in, I prefer the first one because I think the narrative was tighter. I just enjoyed the story more of the first one compared to the second one. But both cases are great games. One I haven't actually got around to playing yet, because like you, I always end up with a to-play list about yay high, and then you count your Steam collection. Is Batman Arkham Origins. Now, as is suggested by the name, it's a prequel. It takes place, I think it's about 10 years before Arkham Asylum takes place, but it wasn't developed by Rocksteady. It was actually developed by Warner Brothers Montreal. I didn't provide the trailer for this one. I just wanted to make sure that anybody who's coming along knows that there's another one that's out there that you can try out. And the story largely revolves around gangster Black Mask, who on Christmas Eve, I believe, hires a bunch of assassins, such as the likes of Deathstroke, Deadshot, to come in and try and kill Batman in one night. So it sounds like he's got a pretty bad night ahead of him. It sounds like, you know, he's got a lot on his hands. He's got a lot to do. Personally, I'm a little bit more excited for Arkham Knight, which comes out next summer. It was originally slated to come out around now, and I've got to find something else to do until then. I think it's about June it comes out next year. This looks really exciting, largely because, one, the map is a lot bigger. They've actually padded it out with a lot more content, but you get to drive the Batmobile this time, which I think would resolve one of the bigger issues I had with Arkham City, and that because the map's so big and Batman can't fly, he just glides. And I believe I was actually talking about this with some of the final years earlier, that one of the techniques that you eventually unlock is you can use your zip line and kind of rapidly zip along that line. So you can zip onto something, zip up it as really quickly as you can to get to the top of that building and then jump off it and glide. And you end up doing that so much, because it's like, okay, right, where do I need to go? It's the other side of the island. Oh. Zip. Zip. Do that about 10 times and you finally made it to the other side of the island. But in this, you're going to be able to drive the Batmobile, so that's going to be really cool. Anyway, like I said, the Arkham series is considered to be, by and large, the best interpretation. I would say it's the best interpretation of Batman in video games since the video game of the Tim Burton movie, which I played on the Amstrad. in about 1980 something. I can't remember what year I had it. It was a great little game. It was a 2D platformer with some combat elements, except for the bits when you drove as the Batmobile. And because there's one bit in that movie where Batman takes a corner by shooting one of his cables at a traffic light and then swings around it, that was the only way you could turn corners in that game. Like every corner, instead of just slowing down and taking the corner easily, no, you had to hit the traffic. And see the amount of times I missed? You're like, oh, and you had to go back and replay that segment again just till you got to that cross section. Hit the traffic light, there we go, I've got it. And then you swing around the corner, because apparently the Batmobile didn't come with a steering wheel in the late 80s. It just sort of like gradually meandered in one general direction. So there's a lot about, I think there's different elements of what they did in Batman Arkham that worked so well. Because I think their key vision was to try and embody playing as the Dark Knight as much as possible. Because everyone kind of wants to be Batman on some primitive level. Or Batwoman, who is actually cooler, I would say, than Batman. And most of you don't know Batwoman exists. There's a Batgirl as well. There's so many of them. Considering he's meant to be a lone warrior, he actually has a cabal of about 20 people he hangs out with. There's like 6 Robins. Seriously, look it up. But in terms of like what embodies Batman, beyond the fact that he seems to have a habit of just taking in orphans, is that he's a detective. So he has all his detective skills, and there's a series of parts throughout the games where you have to try and kind of solve a problem in order to proceed throughout. But there's also, I'd say, other elements of it, largely based around stealth and combat, that are, to me, critical, and the AI helps achieve that. And that's pretty much what this talk's about, is like, what do they do to help facilitate this? So what would you consider the fundamentals of Batman for a game? And at the risk of boring you to death with another video, I have another video.
What is this? Continue.
Looks fine out there. The bears, they go straight to the dealers.
Yeah, and the rabbits go to the man in the narrows.
What's the difference?
Ignorance is bliss, my friend. Don't burden yourself with these secrets of scary people.
Hey, Stice.
Stice?
What?
What?
Better check it. There's a problem out here. You better bail.
for anybody who's never seen that before, I suppose that's a bit of a spoiler. That's taken from Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. That's the first time he actually is Batman in the movie. So yeah, I guess if you've not seen this already, I sort of spoiled a key moment of the movie for you. It's Bruce Wayne, by the way. Bruce Wayne is Batman? What the hell? So I was trying to figure out in my head, before I gave this talk, I'm like, well, how could I kind of distill this down? And I thought that scene is actually a really good representation of everything that the Arkham games do. Because it starts off, it's almost like an inverse horror movie. If you took this from the perspective of the gangsters and you weren't rooting for Batman, it's actually a bit of a horror story. Because you're suddenly being hunted down by someone you can't see, you can't tell where they are. He's picking you off one by one. You know, imagine it's Cabin in the Woods, except you find out at the end it's Batman. It's roughly the same principle. And I like the fact that, if you think about that sequence again, he picks everybody off individually, but starts to kind of scare them a little bit. He's not too quick. He takes his time, picks people off when he can, but also takes out the guy with the gun at his earliest convenience. And only once he takes out the guy with the gun does he start to attack everybody who's then still on foot. And they're all either, just with their fists, or they've maybe got a crowbar or something like that. They're not going to be able to shoot him, which is kind of critical because he's not Superman. He's just a rich guy, and rich guys can still be shot. So, but it really distills down to the fast-paced combat. We don't see much of it there because it's designed to be kind of cut and edited really quickly. He takes out several assailants before they really know what hit them. He's quite agile because he's swinging around in this dockyard and he's able to, he's using his variety of gadgets that only a rich man can have. I'm sure, actually, probably not a rich man could have them, but he is the richest of men and therefore can have the best of gadgets. But the stealth element, particularly at the beginning of the movie, he does train with the League of Shadows. He tries to become an assassin. Sorry, spoiler, again, for the first. We should have like a disclaimer at the beginning of this talk. It's like if you've never played any of these games or seen these movies, you're going to have a bad time. Those three things are pretty much what makes the gameplay so interesting for the player. But the thing is, the AI has to be able to respond to that. So, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about, they do what we just saw in that video. So, first of all, they're responding to local events. Batman takes out all the lights with his batarangs, and then subsequently everyone's turning around and go, oh, what was that? And then they pick up one just to check it, or they're at least checking the local area to see what damage has been done. The character who had the SMG gradually gets more irritated the longer he can't find him. Excuse me, until the point where he then just gets really frustrated and yells, where are you? At which point it's the, here. Whew. But it's building up that tension. That guy's clearly getting more and more frustrated. I think he's actually quite worried about what's happening and trying to kind of act, kind of tough in the face of adversity. But also we then saw that he fights several assailants at once, and then they have to be able to gang up on him and try and take him out. So to me, that was what it was all about. So we'll look at the two key things of how this works. So in combat, Batman will face multiple opponents at once. And the challenge is to maximize the flow of your combat moves. You're trying to build as big a combo as possible because that gives you score. Now, in the main story mode, that means that you actually unlock XP, which then leads to unlockables. You can actually acquire boosts for Batman. You unlock new moves, which can help make your life an awful lot easier. In the case of outside of the story mode, there is actually challenge maps. And you can do the challenge maps, and there's a score for like bronze, silver, gold, and you have to attain that certain amount of points in order to do that. So getting the bigger combos helps you an awful lot to achieve those particular targets. Now the thing is, the original prototypes of the game were built solely around the combat mode. Arkham Asylum was actually a rhythm game to begin with. Some people know this. It wasn't actually intended to be the game it came out with. It was a music rhythm game. And that's why anybody who subsequently plays the combat modes often says there's a kind of weird, almost rhythmic nature to this gameplay because that's originally what it was going to be. And this was all way back at prototype stage when Rocksteady were developing this. And they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be like a music game. You can't imagine everybody coming around the Saturday night and just, well, let's play Batman the Musical. They did a musical, did they not, like a couple of years ago? It looked horrendous because they were using all the costumes from the Joel Schumacher version. Now, I've actually cut together a little bit of footage from one of the first challenge maps. And I'll turn the volume a little down. So this is me playing this just a couple of days. It was actually on Sunday because I realised I had no footage of this. And as you can see, that I have already built up a combo of 10. In fact, I've taken out the first wave. In the time it took me to turn the volume down, I've already beat the first wave of enemies. So Batman's faced against an increasing number of opponents in the challenge maps, and your job is to try and string together as many roofs as possible, and also to maximize your score. You want to get the combo as high as you can, but the variety as high as you can. So I'm kind of focusing primarily on just basic punches and kicks. You'll see sometimes that I can attack with a special move, such as this one, but also that sometimes you will see that they actually try and attack me, and there's like a glow above their head, which is indicative of the fact they're going to attack you, and you can parry that back. It's sort of like a spider sense-like thing, which only exists on the easy difficulties. When you play it on hard, that doesn't exist, and you actually have to pay attention more to what that character's doing. Ultimately, as you'll see later on, I also start to use the cape to try and distract them, but also throw batarangs. And I'm pretty sure I do most of this. There we go. There's a batarang. There's me countering twice in pretty quick succession. Throw him away. Now note that I'm kind of keeping them on the back foot. So they're having a little bit of difficulty fighting me because this is the first challenge map. And I'm a little bit rusty. I haven't played in a while, but I still did all right, I think. But you'll note, and we'll do this soon because we're going to have people come up and play this later on, there's patterns of behavior that exist. They'll do certain things. Now note how one of them decides to run up and attack me. Not all of them at once. They seem to take turns, which kind of makes a little bit of sense because you don't want to end up with everybody being huddled around you. It becomes less of an attack and more like a big hug. Everybody hug Batman! And hope that he gets crushed under our body weight. That was quite good, actually. I was quite pleased with that. Here I disarm the guy and then kind of break his ankle. I've already attained my 3 stars. I'm quite happy. I finish it off by throwing him over and then doing a ground pound. Job's a good one. Didn't mean to junk punch the guy. That's just how the game worked out. But yeah, you can see here, like I got the Dark Knight bonus and the Perfect Night bonus because I'm attaining large combos without losing the combo, but also I never got hit for that entire video, which, considering I was kind of sleepy and I hadn't played this game in ages, and I'm like, let's see how we do. I came away quite pleased with myself. So that's one key element of the game. The other part's the stealth element. Now, this is when the guards actually have guns. Like I said, Batman's got body armor, but he can only take so much punishment. Bearing in mind that particularly in the DC universe, he's probably one of the very few superheroes who doesn't actually have any powers. He's the Tony Stark of the DC universe. It's kind of weird now when you can describe Batman in Iron Man terms. Like 10 years ago, I tried to explain who Tony Stark is, and he's sort of like Bruce Wayne. But funny how the world works out. So in these segments, if you try and take people on directly, you're going to be dead very, very quickly. In fact, you can die in about 10 seconds if you're out in the open, because, well, even if there's just one character just taking fire, like firing upon you, but the thing is that they can also communicate to one another. They can say, oh, hey, I've found the bat. Multiple characters come in at the same time. They'll all shoot you. Yeah, you're a goner. So the goal is to essentially mimic what we saw in that Batman Begins footage, where you try and kill he doesn't kill them. Jesus, he's not the Punisher. He takes people out, but without being spotted. And then one of the cool things about this segment is you can begin to exploit the panic that exists in these characters to make them do silly things. And it's kind of funny what you can do to them. So I've put together a little bit of footage of the first challenge map as well that's based in stealth. Now, in order to attain the 3 stars, or 3 bats as it were, there's actually objectives. Sneaking up behind someone, exploding a wall, and taking someone out with a batarang. So if you just pass the level, you finish it. But you have to complete these specific objectives in order to do so. So I start off by turning on detective vision, which gives me an X-ray like vision of the room. I find my first guy and I do a silent takedown. All good. Thing is, there's still 5 more of them in the room. So I keep low and then I try and get to high ground. There we go. So now that I'm up high, I can begin to sort of get a lay of the land and see where everybody is. And note how more or less everyone's on some sort of patrol. They're all wandering around everywhere, except for this guy in particular who's right in front of me. And there's a reason for that, this is one of these little moments where it's designed to help you out from a design perspective. That wall can be destroyed by explosive gel. So he's conveniently standing in front of it, because that's how video games work. So I go back up top, now that I've put my explosive gel on it, and then I want to get a good point to watch it. So, nah, this isn't good, we'll move over here, then get the bat popcorn out, and watch him die. Or at least get suitably hurt. 2 stars, down to 4 already. Now the thing is that, as you can hear, someone's recognized that one of their teammates has been taken out. He's made a yell to everyone to tell them that something's happened, and they all begin to converge where this guy is, but they're now conversing with one another. Interestingly, some of them are taunting you, telling you to come out, but other ones are going, no, we need to do something about this quick, otherwise we're next. So they're kind of giving you that sense of empowerment, because you're feeling good about yourself, like, yeah, I'm Batman, I'm taking people out, and they're in a little bit of a worry. Now, I don't know, I'm kind of watching them thinking that those 2 guys are together. If I take one of them out, that's not going to work. But hey, look at this. They're conveniently heading towards this room, which has a roof that I can cover in explosive gel. Ta-da! So I think I'll get back up here as they're kind of... Now, it's cool that they're actually working together, back to back. That way they're covering so that no one's going to come in on either side, but someone can come in from above. Down to 2. Once again, they recognize that something's happened in the environment. In fact, in this case, they heard the explosion, and now they're all rushing towards it. So he's kind of busy. I missed that batarang, I'll try it again. There we go, I've got him, but I'm not going to take him out. I'm going to focus on the other guy, because he's now disoriented. Now he sees me coming, and actually manages to get a shot in, and look how much health I lost. I actually lost about 45% of my health just off that one incursion there. If I did that more than once and was sloppy, then I'd be a goner. So, there he is again, and I'm determined to get my 3 stars. So there we go. Another batarang takes him out. I glide over, do the final takedown. I don't know what it is about punching people in the groin area, or, you know, in the ass. It's all a bit inappropriate, I'd say. But yep, I got my 3 stars. I'm quite happy with that. So, when Arkham City came out, it was a big talking point, certainly, because it was a really, really good game. But what happened is that AIGameDev.com, which is a website that is hosted by Alex Champandard, who is still a sort of contract AI developer, but primarily now editor-in-chief of AI Game Dev. He runs this website, and they have this annual Best of AI for the year. And it was put to, and what it does is they put it to a vote from the community of people that read the site, as well as their editorial team kind of agree on what they think is what the big talking points in AI in the games industry for a given year. And Arkham City was awarded Best AI in a AAA game, because the characters that you're actually fighting against are really dynamic, they're quite engaging, and the stealth sequences give you that sense of empowerment that you want. So as a result, they were then invited to give a keynote at the Game AI conference. And the Game AI conference is also hosted by AI Game Dev, so they said, come along, give us a keynote, tell us how you did it. And, well, they went, and it was funny because when you actually watch the talk that was given, I'm like, we're really grateful you invited us, but yeah, we just did it with finite state machines. Now, I realised to about 2/3 of the room that doesn't really mean anything, but particularly for those of you who actually do any kind of game AI work, people that work in the industry, it's like, oh, just finite state machines, that was it. Finite state machines. Oh. We thought it was something more epic. Particularly given that the industry has transitioned a little bit in recent years, they start to look at things such as behavior trees, which are used in, for example, the Halo series. It's also been used in Metro By and large, behaviour trees became quite prominent, but subsequently also planning systems, and planning systems are now used for the likes of fear on a kind of traditional strips-based planning, but also hierarchical task network planning, which has a lot of similarities to the likes of behaviour trees, and they're starting to be used a lot more in action games. Killzone 2 and 3 popularised it, as well as the Transformers series by Arkham Studios. So to hear that it was just finite state machines, everyone's like, oh, right, okay. Cool, well, how did you do it, I guess? So I guess I better start with a little brief on what a finite state machine is, for people in the room who don't know what they are. Those of you who are final year should hopefully know by now. It's a simple mathematical model of computation. It's essentially an extension of the likes of the Turing machine. In fact, it's a simplification of the Turing machine. And the emphasis on a finite state machine is what is happening in a system versus how you actually achieve that. So if we can model what's happening at certain points in a system, we can then identify what events will trigger these changes in the system. So what we've got is we say, right, we're in a particular state in our machine, an event has happened, we can then achieve a transition. And that's like the simplest of finite state machines I can actually think of. You have some state A, and this can mean whatever, and an event happens that makes it transition from state A to state B, and it will stay in state B until another event occurs, which causes it to transition back to state A. One of the simplest ones I could think of, I'm going to come to it in a minute, would be in Pac-Man, because, you know, if we're going to do AI in games, everything just distills back to Pac-Man anyway. But finite state machines have been around for a while, and they're quite a powerful tool, because one of the interesting parts is you can sort of visually debug what your character's doing. If you build a nice tool set in it, you can actually look at the state machine in real time and watch what state it's in and why it is in that state, and then observe what events in the game world are happening that's causing a character to transition between states. So if I was to take a particular example, because, you know, any excuse to talk about Pac-Man, those of you who came along to the first talk will remember that if we look at the original Pac-Man, there's 4 ghosts, Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde. And each ghost has its own unique decision-making process. Now, I can't recall off the top of my head what they all are, but by and large, one will try and head directly to where you were, one will try and head in front of you, one will actually go to where one of the other ones has been. I can't remember all 4, but there is like a varying algorithm. Each of them has their own unique behavior. But it all conforms to a really simple finite state machine. You want to watch a bit of Pac-Man first, though? Because I want you to see if you can figure out what it is. The final years already know the answer. You can just keep the mouth shut. Pac-Man. So here we go. Pac-Man's away. Now all the ghosts are gradually making their way out of the bullpen, and they're beginning to kind of chase down Pac-Man, until, of course, a power pill got consumed, and now they're sort of in an evasive mode. They're trying to get away from him, because they know now that they're liable to be killed. When they're in this current mode, they're invincible. They don't have anything to worry about, so they just continue to hunt him. Then again, now, he's consumed a power pill. I better run. And as you can see, while Pac-Man's up the top, the rest of them are down the bottom, with the exception of the one who actually was subsequently killed and respawned, because he's now no longer under the effects of the power pill and can attack. I don't think we'll drag the video out too long. Maybe try and see till he gets to the end of the level. Once again, they're back in kind of hunting mode, albeit a little bit different, and again, they're back in evasive mode. There we go, 1 level down. So, if I was to take what I just said a minute ago about finite state machines and go, well, how does that work in terms of Pac-Man? It's really easy. Pac-Man has 2 states, I would say, for the ghost. If I'm actually removing any assumption, I'm going to ignore the whole part of the game where they sit in the bullpen and they gradually come out. I'm just going to look at their behavior when they're running around in the maze. They have a chase state. And when they're chasing, they just try and close down the distance on Pac-Man using whatever method it is they're supposed to be doing it with. So I don't have to worry about how they chase Pac-Man. I just know that they're in the chasing mode. When they're in the chasing mode, they just continue to do that until an event occurs. And the event that occurs is that Pac-Man consumes the power pill. So when he consumes the power pill, they're now actually vulnerable. He can kill them, he can eat them, that gives him a score boost. So they go into more of a kind of a innovation state. They're like, I need to get out of here. Until eventually, that power pill's going to run out, and then they just go back to chasing you again. Really straightforward, right? And that's all it is, as far as if you model it at that level of abstraction. Of course, that's not really how it works when you get into a more kind of granular level, because we have to write the code for how their chase works and how their evasion works. Now, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if they all evade in the same way. I actually don't know. I should probably go and read that up at some point. But given that they all chase differently, this means that if you had 4 different ghosts all using this same finite state machine, I'd have to write a unique bit of code for each of them. When I'm in the chase state, this is how I go about it. But the key thing is, one state, another state, and that's really all we need to know. So this is applicable in Batman, albeit it's a little bit more complex. Now, I don't really know what their finite state machines look like. I mean, this is sort of something that they like to keep to themselves, but we can kind of begin to kind of piece together roughly how it works. And it can actually, if you think about it on some levels, be a lot simpler. On one level of abstraction, it's actually really simple, but then we can kind of go down to something far more granular. Because the thing is that we already know roughly what the events are. In the stealth sequences, if a character gets taken out. Now, early on, when a character gets taken out, it takes maybe a minute or two for the characters to respond. Typically because I think the Joker will actually send a radio communique down to them and say, oh, hey, it seems like one of you is out for the count. And then they kind of run around until they find him. In later parts of the game, actually, the inmates are all wearing collars. And these were originally designed as suicide collars in the story mode, so that they knew in the event of a character trying to take his own life that they could rush into a room and try and help him. However, in this case, the Joker's actually modified it, so if Batman knocks them out, it then generates a pulse. It actually makes a lot of noise, so all the other characters nearby can find it. Oh, hey, Batman's taking a guy out, we better go and check it out. So things such as explosions, as your teammates being knocked out. Also, you saw that, if you actually saw carefully, when I threw the Batarang and took out one of them, the other one responded to that and started looking around in the area to see what was going on. He's like, hang on, I think that Batarang came from roughly that direction, which worked out almost for him, because then when I swooped down to take him out, he could see me coming because he was kind of looking in that general direction. And that's pretty much, I think, oh yeah, I think the last one is just trying to establish search patterns. So if you know, if Batman took someone out, and maybe you heard something afterwards, it would then establish, okay, maybe we should start searching that way. So you can see that there's maybe different states that are going to occur, where he has to look at the local gargoyles, or look over a railing or something to see if he can see Batman. If they're going to, well, if they see you directly, they will shoot at you. But they're also going to move around an awful lot. They have to run around the map to responding to different events that are happening around them. Now, I'm going to kind of look at, if you take what we were looking at earlier, where it was the stealth sequence where I was picking off all the guards one by one, if you were to model that rather naively, I'd maybe do something like this. So maybe when you start off in the map, they begin by just patrolling the local area. Now, what does patrolling actually mean? Ultimately, it kind of boils down to them just walking around the environment, so some basic path code. Now, pathing in most game engines can actually be achieved quite easily. So they're looking around, and periodically they might do something a bit different. They might stop and kind of like put their gun on their shoulder and just kind of have a quick look around. Or if there's a railing nearby, they'll have a little look over it. They might scratch their ass. They might talk to someone else. And these are all, elements that are designed to kind of keep you entertained. Little animations and sound clips, which are what make it work. Now, if I was to take someone out, they're going to respond to that. Maybe I do it loudly. If I'd used the explosive gel, I took a wall out, they hear the wall blow up. And they go, right, hang on, I'm going to head towards that disturbance. So they know where that took place. And that'll be because the game actually tells it directly, oh, an event has occurred here, you're going to head to that location. So they head over, and then there's a change in the state again when they reach a line of sight. you saw that when one of them actually saw the character was down, as soon as he's got a line of sight on the body, he stopped and yelled to his teammates. He's like, oh, I found someone over here. So they announced the discovery, and of course, how they announce the discovery, it doesn't matter. It can be different animations or sound clips. Once that's finished, it'll then actually start looking at moving towards the body. And they head over. And once you're within range, again, another animation will take place because they want to have a look and just kind of get a little feel for it. And of course, they do it all different ways. Some of them just kind of observe the body and go, oh no. Others come over and kind of give them a bit of a shake to see if they're all right, kind of give them a little smack. It's like, are you awake? Once they're sort of finished this, and now you're thinking about it more in the sense that he's finished checking whether or not the guy's conscious. In actuality, what he's doing is he's waiting until his animation sequence has ended. Once the animation sequence is over, we then go into what is about to be the next patrolling pattern. Now, giving orders to other grunts. Now, it could be he gives orders. It could be that he just... I think I was actually a little bit naive when I said that, because what it could be is he just makes some sort of proclamation. Sometimes they say, you know, we got to find out where he is quick, or they'll start to yell at him, particularly when it's the last one left. And he'll kind of go back into his patrol habit. Now that doesn't change. That's more or less how it continues to operate if I'm never seen. I can continually take people down, they'll go and check the body out, they'll do another little animation. But the thing is that how they do all these things can differ as the context begins to change throughout. So if I'm moving towards the disturbance, depending on where they are, they'll do it in a different way. Sometimes they'll just run along to it. Sometimes they jump over a railing. Sometimes they climb up a ladder. Sometimes they'll do things that were a little bit unexpected because you didn't think they would actually path that way. Oh, there's not a direct path here, but they can jump over this and kind of fall down a gap in order to get to where they want to go. They don't announce the discoveries in the same way. Different animations take place. Different sound cues take place. And particularly when you get to the likes of when they're giving orders to the other grunts, those change over time because the characters begin to get more and more edgy. They become more panicked because as they get taken out one by one, and there's less of them left in the map, you'll note actually that the last characters are delirious. They're freaking out because somewhere the Batman is watching. So when they're searching the local area, this state, or this part of the gameplay continues to change over time. First of all, where do they start patrolling? Naturally, they're going to start patrolling from around the body. But also, as you saw in that previous video, they start grouping up a bit more. So maybe two of them hang out together back to back because they're kind of worried. Nobody thinks to look up. Everyone just kind of looks that way. Despite all these gargoyles, it's like this wonderful design decision by the architects to have gargoyles in the building. Nobody ever thought of that. Eventually they do, because they get tech which allows them in Arkham City, or I think they do it in Asylum as well, where they can actually scan the gargoyles to see if you're on it. And as well, they begin to shoot the gargoyles, because they realize that that can be something that eliminates your range of options. But that's done while they're searching the local area. They'll be searching around. Every now and then they'll say something. And that's to help kind of give you, like that, again, that sense of empowerment when it's like they're freaking out a little bit and they say something to their buddy like, where the hell is he, man? I'm freaking out here. He's like, I don't know. It seems like a really bad idea right now. And you're going, hey. That was my Batman swoop. Needs a bit of work. But also when they get to the end, when it's the last guy left, he's prone to just firing randomly. Sort of like the guy in the movie, where he'll get to a point and he thinks he's hearing things now. It could actually be that you're just sitting there the whole time like, dance puppet. But the character is kind of maneuvering around. He doesn't really have any particular objective anymore because he's the last one left, so all he's really doing is covering his own ass. But he'll be running off all these strange little animations, looking over railings, periodically going, wow, what was that? Brrr, and shoots off a few rounds. When it was nothing, it was purely in his head. So and you think, well, how is that all working? It's not really that sophisticated. It actually just boils down to moving to locations and playing animations. Now, I'm not saying that that's all their finite state machines are. Their finite state machines, I would argue, are a lot more complex. But if you think about it on a more abstract level, and this is something you can do with finite state machines, is you can have finite state machines within finite state machines. It's called hierarchical finite state machine. Or finite state automata, sorry. Plural, it's automata. So I could have a complete finite state machine just inside the move to location state, because I could have different ways in which the navigation works, but also the playing animation is very broad. But we see this in the stealth segments when they'll move to a location for a particular reason and then play just one animation. And that can be they get to a set of stairs or a ladder. They then climb up the ladder, which is sort of an animation. They can look over a railing. They can get close to a gargoyle. If they're underneath a gargoyle and they've got the equipment for it, they can either look up and scan it, or they'll shoot it. Now, bearing in mind that even shooting is more or less an animation, but it's going to be passing bullets as well. Byproduct of that animation is bullets. I see Neil quite likes that notion. It's just a byproduct of animation. Bullets and death. That kind of distills, I mean, an awful lot of games, that's really the kind of key element of it, is just moving to locations and playing animations. And for me, that was actually the big part of getting this to work, was they got the AI working, but you can only get so much from tweaking the behaviors. Now, the behaviors are quite rich, they're quite broad, but the thing, this is a video game we're dealing with. If you want to have characters that look exciting in a video game, well, the AI is not going to cut it unless there's some sort of visual or audio cue. Because it doesn't matter how intelligent something is, unless the player can see that it's intelligent, they assume that it is not. Pretty much, we're running on the assumption that if I see it do something intelligent, therefore it must be intelligent. And that's where a lot of smoke and mirrors in game design works, because if you do things that kind of embellish the intelligence of the character, then you can begin to realize, actually, you think this thing's a lot smarter than it actually is. So for me, the two key things, rigorous iterative development. We're going to talk a little bit about how Rocksteady go about this, but a bloody good animator. In fact, I think that was the exact words that were used in the keynote at the Game AI conference, was a bloody good animator. And they have their animation team. Now, the thing is that if you want to iteratively develop all these mechanics for both the stealth and the combat, one of the cool things that we learned is that the AI developers at Rocksteady are also the primary gameplay mechanic programmers, which was kind of interesting because you usually don't think about it like that. You've got your core gameplay programmers, and then you're going to have your AI programmers in the corner. No, these guys, it's the same team, because they sort of came to this conclusion that if you're going to build a new mechanic into the game, whether it was the ability there's the inverted takedowns, when you can swoop down and take someone out, if you're going to be able to hit them with a batarang, if you're going to have some particular disarming move, as Batman, you need to make sure that your AI characters can respond to that. So the way that they perceived it was any new gameplay mechanic that came in, they took responsibility for it, but also ensured that the AI could respond to it in kind, which was kind of interesting. In addition, typically when you're getting into kind of industry level programming, you will have jobs that need done, and you assign these as sort of tickets amongst the team, and then people will be assigned towards dealing with that particular problem. Now, when they did it at Rocksteady, one programmer for any core gameplay mechanic had to be matched with one animator. In fact, their core AI programming team sit next to their animation team. They work together pretty much all the time, because they realized that, sure, it'll be great if the character's doing something intelligent, but we need to make sure from day one that the animators are on board, and we're not giving them like a bug list. Like, here's all these AI behaviors, and the animations look crap, go and fix it. In fact, what would happen is that the gameplay programmers, the AI programmers, would be given a copy of their animation, and then they would deliberately rig it bad. They would kind of rig it up just to show roughly what they wanted. They'd kind of hack into the animation and go, right, it kind of wants to do a bit of this and then a bit of that, just for them to prototype it. And the animator would sort of look at it and go, oh, God, Christ, right, hang on, give this to me. And they'd go and fix it up and actually turn it into something far nicer and kind of more polished. And that would be how they'd go around it. Now, the thing is that also one of the lead designers would also be responsible and would oversee each of these features. So they'd have somebody who's like overall game design, just to make sure that the idea that they're introducing wasn't going to break the build. Last thing you want to be doing is breaking the build. One AI programmer who would deal not only with the core mechanic for Batman himself, but how the AI would respond to it. And then the animator would make sure that whatever rough animation idea that he or she had discussed with the programmer would then be implemented on their end. Now, the cool thing about this was they were so good at it, they actually got to a point they could add and remove features of gameplay in a week. Now, you think about the scope and complexity of these games, you could add features in. Just, oh, you know what would be a really great idea? They could have a roughly animated, albeit not perfect, it would still need a bit of polish, they'd have it working in the build in a week. Now, by game development standards, that's really fast. That's frighteningly fast, actually. There's also, I think, one or two features that exist in Arkham City were actually built in Arkham Asylum within the last month of development, and they decided just for the sake of QA purposes they wouldn't ship it. If I remember right, in Arkham City there is a move where you can do a takedown on someone. So you saw I was doing takedowns when they were on the ground. I'm jumping, remember I was punching them in the crotch punching. There was actually a move in Arkham City where, if I remember right, if you hit them with the cape to disorient them, you can then jump on their shoulders and smash them to the ground. They built that and they had it running in Arkham Asylum, and they only came up with it about a month before the game went gold. And they went, oh, this would be a really cool idea. No, you know what, let's just focus on getting the game out the door. That's how good they were, that they were still adding mechanics to the game, and then, we'll put it in the sequel. Which is, you know, I think maybe they were quite confident the game would go well, which, let's face it, it's a great game. But this is kind of the level of skill that they now had. And for them, this is one of their biggest things, is having, like, I think the expression was a shit-hot animation team. A great animation team, but also a great programming team that could work together. And particularly for those of you in final year who are kind of going to go off in a couple of months and start working with the art guys, tie down that animator as soon as you can and make it aware to them that, well, they're not so much your bitch, because it's supposed to be a cooperative thing. I realise I'm talking to programmers here. It is meant to be a cooperative thing, but starting this sort of thing off as early as possible. Get your animator involved on basic character animations as soon as you can, because they spent a tremendous amount of time and effort sort of refining this. Now, that wasn't it. I mean, it wasn't just, right, we've got a whole bunch of animations, we just kind of work together, we kind of hash out some of this. They also had to develop a series of kind of constraints or rules that will ensure it's all enjoyable to play. And that's where they were doing, because they were doing this kind of iterative development, they could test prototypes really, really quickly, and used to get a lot of people playing the game. Now, this can change, because we've seen the stealth segments, we've seen the combat segments. One of the things I didn't show were the boss segments, where you fight off against some of the bigger characters. In fact, that background image is where you fight Bane in Arkham Asylum, but also you end up fighting against characters such as Killer Croc. In Arkham City, you fight Bane again, but so he doesn't die or anything like that. But also people like Solomon Grundy. So these are all kind of big, heavy characters. And that actually largely revolved around getting internal playtesting on the go on their prototypes. And they would check to see what the strength or timing of individual moves were. So in the case of Bane not only has a very strong punch, I think about 3 punches and you're out on your basic health, but he charges at you, and the way to take him out is you throw a batarang at him while he's running, he gets disoriented, he runs into a wall, it gives you a small window from within which to attack him. They would continually refine the speed of that run, how hard his punches were, and how long he would be disoriented. Now that came from here, but also in the likes of Arkham City, Ra's al Ghul has some weird combat elements where there's very small windows of attack. They would repeatedly play this, and what they would do is, and I feel sorry for him because I'm going to say it, this would be like getting John Pledger to play a game. Now, for those of you who don't know who John Pledger is, he's the computer game modeling and animation program leader he's also not the best of gamers. And that was how they'd go about it. They'd find the poorest gamer on the team and get them to play the game, because they realised that a lot of the guys who were continually refining the mechanics, they weren't the people that should be playing it to test it. They give it to the poorest gamers in Rocksteady and said, right, you play it. I'm going to jump over here. Oh no, I'm dead again. And I can't seem to hit him. Every time I try and do it, I screw it up. And they would use that as feedback. Now, of course, they had their QA team. They could ship it all out to Warner Brothers and ask them, okay, send it off to one of your QA teams. But they like to do it a lot internally, because they figured they could iron out a lot of the bugs before they put it in the hands of others. So they actually find the bigger, larger problems that exist in the game that probably they've missed. Particularly because, as I recall, it was stated, they would have a full prototype of the story from start to finish, probably with some of the cutscenes missing and some of the kind of key, like the actual game wouldn't be there, but you could play the game from start to finish in 6 months. After 6 months of development, they had the first build from start to end. Sure, it was missing pretty much everything that made it a game, but they were like, okay, now we can just start debugging and kind of beginning to refine the gameplay. But while that was all happening, you had the AI programmers and animators continually working on their own little prototypes, just making sure that all the features worked really, really well. Also, you want to constrain the AI to not make certain decisions. And that sounds a little bit weird, but as I've alluded to in my AI class, the thing about artificial intelligence in video games is you kind of want it to be a bit of an idiot, which kind of flies in the face of how AI works, right? It's supposed to be these super intelligent systems are going to take over the earth and we're going to die in nuclear fire and blah, 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 blah. One can only hope. But in games, we don't want that, because we want to make sure that they're defeatable, that they're fallible, that they're kind of idiotic, but still intelligent enough to keep us on our toes. And there's a number of little decisions that they implemented in both combat and stealth to achieve that. And I'll kind of highlight some of them in a minute. I talked already about the timing for boss attacks. So if we look at the combat mode, there was one really simple rule that they implemented in Arkham Asylum. Only one enemy can attack Batman at once. And I think Assassin's Creed have done that to death for about the last 4, 5 iterations. Speaking as someone who thoroughly enjoys Assassin's Creed, I think they really need to mix it up a little bit. Assuming none of the Titan characters were involved. Now, the Titans are kind of bigger, heavier characters that are introduced later on who aren't bosses. They're just kind of part of the standard combat mix. So you can only have one character attack Batman at a time, largely because at the time Batman could only parry against one person. Now, like I said already, that they were doing this, they were kind of refining the timing of the frequency of attacks, because you should only really be hurt in the event of your own stupidity. You want to make sure that any failings don't come from the game itself, but more because the player then gets frustrated at themselves and go, fuck, and then maybe, like, if it's a challenge map, they'll go away and restart it because that perfect combo got wasted. And the reason is that every time you do an attack in the game, you leave yourself open to a response from the enemy. And there's a risk-reward balance. I mean, this is a kind of fundamental game design element. There's a risk attached to every single thing you do, and there's a reward attached to it. My crotch punching attacks, they give me the biggest amount of points, which is why when you saw me doing the combat earlier, I finished off with that ground attack, that ground takedown, because it's got the biggest value added to it. The problem is, if I do that in the middle of combat, I'm left wide open. I'm down on my knees, to start with. Already people are taking this to a very horrible conclusion in their head. I'm down on my knees, I'm about to punch a guy in the crotch, because apparently that's what Batman does. But of course, when you do that, you're far more exposed. So I very rarely do it in the middle of combat. I use it as a finishing move. Or if everybody's down, I'll exploit that fact and then, okay, right, I'll quickly take that guy out with a ground takedown because no one's going to attack me yet. It's one of the biggest opportunities for the enemy to come up and just punch you. And if you're going for that big combo and you're trying to get 3 stars on the challenge map, that's pretty much it, ruined. And then you get really frustrated at yourself and you throw it away. Now, it was modified in Arkham City because it allowed multiple attacks at once. However, the game actually treats it as one attack because it is one animation that responds to it. But you have to make sure you press the appropriate number of counters to achieve it. So up to 3 people can attack you at once. And what you do is you have to press counter quickly 3 times, and then Batman will play an animation that counters all 3 characters, and then you continue on as normal. But more or less, they're trying to constrain how many attack you, because if they all run in at the same time and go, "Ah!" and then all punch you in different angles of your head, being rich ain't going to help you come out of that. So, that's really what it is. It's that we want to make sure that the AI is fair by putting the blame on you. You want to feel more like you screwed up rather than the game is at fault. As soon as you get players into that particular mindset, you've won. Because if they're thinking, oh man, the AI is so unfair, it's griefing me, I can't do anything about this, then you've got a bit of a problem because you're having to try to educate them and say, well, actually, it's not really my fault as the AI programmer. It's your fault because you screwed up while you were playing. But of course, you can't say that to them. It's like, hi, I want you to buy my game, but you keep screwing up when you play it. You play my game wrong. There's another problem. If you're having to tell someone if they're playing your game wrong, you haven't designed it right. And this is how, like I said, iterative development, they played it so much that they got this all down as fine as they could. So that if you do get hurt, if you do lose your combo, it's your own fault. And I'm that guy. As soon as I lose that one hit, I take that one hit, I go, oh, fuck, and I pause the game, I restart the challenge mode immediately. Every time I play challenge mode, if I get hit once, it's a waste of a challenge. I've got to restart that attempt. And I can see a couple of nods when people are going, oh yeah, I've done that. I've been there. You don't want to play more than is necessary. And there's a larger system that's actually governing who attacks. There is a kind of overseeing AI system that goes, okay, you're going to get him now. But also it allows them to do other things. One of the things we didn't see here is that they can grab weapons from the local environment. Sometimes characters are carrying crowbars, and the first thing I can do is disarm him. I can take the crowbar off him, I can knock him out with it, but then Batman throws it to the ground. The system can then tell a character, go pick up that crowbar. In fact, in some cases, they'll pull it off of a wall, or there's like a weapon cache, and they open it up. And that takes a bit of time for that animation to complete, but also subsequently it plays an alarm. So there's this noise that's going off because it's clear that they're trying to steal something from the cache, and that gives you, as the player, a cue to stop them before they do. Because if they take a gun out, that combat mode can end very, very quickly. And in this case, because they give you plenty of warning, if you lose, it's your own fault. That's why those animations are in there. That's why the animation takes maybe 5 to 10 seconds for him to complete taking the gun out, and why the sound plays, because it's going, take him out. The game is openly encouraging you to take somebody out at a particular point in time. So, I need a volunteer. Because I want someone to come in and play a little bit on that first challenge map in Arkham Asylum.
You have to be good at the game.
You don't have to be good at the game. You can think you're good at the game. You could also be terrible at the game, because we're just going to see what happens. All right, so we've got a number of people here. All right, one of you two come forward then. Give them a round of applause. Now, I'm going to warn you, you're about to be immortalized.
On the internet?
On the internet, because I'm recording this. So if we go into challenge mode, and let's pick either of those combat maps, whichever one you would prefer.
Oh, I have to remember the controls now.
X to punch, Y to counter. Oh dear. So let's see what they do. One person comes in. Oh, nicely done. He's out already. Again, one at a time, one at a time. You've got a bit of an opening now. You can begin to, oh, you've screwed that combo up. Restart. No. So we're not going to see too much from them because it's one of the earlier challenge maps, but the most obvious thing is only one of them's going to attack him at every given point in time. So there we go. One attacks. Now, oh, you were given plenty of cue. No other character attacked you while that guy with the knife tried to do so. Now what happens if you just stand back? Just run over in a corner and just try and hide for a second and see what they do. Nope, he's determined he's going to do it. Oh, one of them comes to get you, but the others don't bother. All taking their time, all quite gradual. That was close. and the big sexy animation finish to help you with that sense of empowerment once again, because you're Batman. Now look at this in the corner. One's now running to go and get the pipe off the wall, but it's left it open long enough for the attack to come in, and he's now been taken out. Easy. Oh! Uninstall. What do you want me to do? Set the machine on fire next? This is my home machine. Oh, have we even hit 1 star yet? Sorry, I'm distracting you. Once again, characters are running off in the corner, trying to get weapons off the wall. This guy's taking a pipe. There's somebody else trying to get what looks like a switch box or a light fitting off the wall. Now, of course, he's going to be quite dangerous. Oh, there's 2 of them. One attack at a time, always leaving you enough room to not make a mess of it. No pressure. Oh, we got 1 star.
Capture the knife, don't have to capture like 3 times back.
To do, no, that's City. In Arkham City you can counter. In Asylum you've got to hit them with a cape. That'll disorient them long enough.
High score.
High score. It's because I've never played that level on the PC build. The previous high score was 0. Would you like to try the first level then? Do the first challenge, Matt. Because that was one I did sort of in a hurry on Sunday. I'm pretty sure you can do better than me. So let's try it again. Once again, 1 character attacks, the other 2 stand back. Gradually taking their time. Oh. Oh! Now look how easily they could have both attacked him at the same time there. They're right in front of him, but no, they each take turns. And of course, whenever you attack, if someone attacks you and you counter them, they won't attack you while you're countering. Which seems to me like the obvious time to attack Batman. Because he's got some guy with a leg, and he's like, I'm going to break your ankle, so I'd come running in with a crowbar. Like, no, bang. But no, he won't do that.
It could be a little bit better if you can't do it.
See, look, this is the ideal time to hit him, but they won't do it. Because that animation needs to be seen through to its conclusion. I mean, look at this guy. He's just waiting to get a kick in the face. But you don't really think about it at the time, do you? You're far more interested in smacking them all as quickly as you can, maximising the combo, getting your score up. I don't think my high score's under threat. I'm sorry, that's twice I've made a comment and then you've been hit. And notice how sometimes the game tries to give you an extra helping hand, because it almost slows down a little bit, just enough for you to respond to the fact that you're about to have an incoming attack and you should parry it. Emphasis on should. That's the ground takedown. Now the thing is, you were kind of lucky there because you'd just taken the previous guy out, but you were exposed. If everybody else was upstanding and you tried to do a ground takedown then, they probably would have hit you. I think you still need about 25,000 or something like that. I can't remember. Here we go. Big combo. All taking their time, nobody in any particular hurry to attack Batman, which you'd kind of think was their purpose. Oh. Easy. Oh no. There we go. There's the risk reward. You went for the ground takedown at the wrong time. You went for that ground takedown when he was right in front of you, and that's an ideal opportunity for him to attack. Okay then. So yeah, A little bit of work to go in the score there, but sweet.
Played it in years.
I think that'll do us for now. That'll do us for now. We're going to come back to the stealth stuff in a second. No. Somebody else can get a shot on the stealth. Give him a round of applause. He did all right. So let me get back to the actual talk. So you saw there. I mean, be honest. Have you ever actually thought about any of that when you were playing it? For those of you who've played the game, you're too busy focusing on get the hits in. Neil is the only person apparently. He's like, yeah, I've thought about all this on a very intimate level. I understand intrinsically everything you're talking about, and coming to this talk was an absolute waste of my time.
That's how Neil thinks in his head.
There's the door, mate.
Kind of trapped now.
But yeah, I mean, you've probably not thought about it like this, and it's funny because when I play it, the first thing I do is I go, okay, now what? I actually, once or twice, I've just played to see if I could beat the entire map just by countering. And you can do it, because they're all just going to take their turn one after the other, and every time you do a counter-attack, you gradually wean their health down. So it's very uninspiring, because you've just got a Batman who just sort of stands in one place, and then, wah! And that's it, and you go, well, that's not that exciting, but the AI is kind of distilled down to that point. So of course, I mean, given this is the first challenge map, it's not that hard, particularly when you get to Arkham City, and it's a mob of about 40 attacking you at once. That's when it gets a little bit more interesting. So looking at the stealth, you're pathfinding an awful lot. The characters are moving to different locations, and they're doing things along the way. So there's certain hotspots that are set up around the map, which allow them to do certain things. There's like smart nodes, essentially. So if you think about your navigation, that there are nodes where you want to move around, there'll be particular nodes that it stops at, so it can do something interesting, like maybe look up at the gargoyle or something like that. Or actually in the map that we'll see in a minute, because there's multiple levels, sometimes what it will do is just peek over the edge. Now the thing is that it's just a simple animation that it's doing to break up the monotony, because if all it does is walk, one, the guy's going to have really sore feet after about 10 minutes. And he's going to kind of wear the ground down when he's like, still can't find the Batman. Still can't find the Batman. Gets all the way up there, comes all the way back, and he's like, nope, still haven't found him. Still can't find the Batman. I wonder what the Batman is. I still can't find the Batman. Why didn't I think to look above me? No, I'll keep walking. I'm going to find him eventually. I'm going to walk right up to the camera here. No, Batman. And then I'll just keep going. And the whole time you're thinking, God, the AI in this game's crap. But this guy's just wandering around constantly. And imagine that didn't change as well based on the current context of that match. If you've taken out everybody except him, and he's still doing the same thing. All my friends are knocked out, but I'm going to find the Batman. Just you wait. That's not going to help. That's not remotely interesting. So having them just play short animations helps mix things up. And of course, one, it helps convey that they're actively searching for you. Two, they can actually find you by accident when they do that. So if he looks over the edge, his line of sight is now aimed at where the animation's playing, or his head is. So he could actually see you if you're, aye. He'll go, it's a Batman! And then he'll jump down and try and attack you. Now, of course, the animations are dependent upon the state of the character. So you can take down multiple characters throughout the stealth sequence, and the animations that will play will change. Because the idea is that you're supposed to be under the impression that they're getting freaked out. Now, an artificial intelligence doesn't get afraid. Not even by Batman. AI is not afraid of Batman. But it needs to convey to you that it is. So that's why they go through that extra effort to have those little animation sequences where he's freaking out. And they're shouting at each other. Or he'll just like blind fire somewhere because he thinks he heard something when nothing was there. And of course, again, for me, I sit there and like, throw a batarang next to his head. Watch. There's actually a good thing which I'll encourage someone to do, which is if you do an inverted takedown on an enemy, what happens is they hang off the gargoyle on a bit of rope. You can then swing to the other side of the map and then cut the rope with a batarang. If you do it in the proximity of another character who's went to check in, they completely freak out. Oh my God, what the fuck? Of course, they can't see you. Particularly, well, I'm assuming it's not like he's hanging there and you went. If you do that, they're going to see you. But if you're on the other side of the map, say it's over where the camera is, and I just throw it, and then the body falls, and somebody's next to that camera. It's like, oh my God, what the heck? And then they start to look around in a panic, because they're just responding to events. They just transition into a state in their finite state machine that says play an animation. The most obvious of design decisions, in hindsight, was one that they realized that they needed to implement. When they pathfind, they never backtrack on themselves. And I thought, well, I suppose it could need to backtrack at some point. I imagine in one or two circumstances this has to happen because they walk into a dead end. However, I think it's more or less when they do their standard patrols, they more or less just continue on a path, maybe do a little animation, and then they keep going. Because there's nothing worse if he's walking along there and you're Batman like this. And he decides to go, and this you're like, oh shit. And the gun's there. Let me tell you a story about my parents. Funny, kind of ironic how this is all going to pan out, isn't it? So no, it doesn't do that. So with that in mind, actually, there's one other thing I forgot to tell you about, which is kind of cool. So I was saying how the characters each have their own unique state, and they get into a more delirious state, and you can observe this in the detective vision. Because, I'll get to this actually in a second, I forgot. In Arkham City, they had more stealth mechanics than were actually in the final build. And one of the reasons for that was they decided to trim it down. They had like so many of them in it that you would need to have a new tutorial every 5 minutes to explain all the mechanics. They'd implemented so many new ideas after Asylum. They're like, have you got any new ideas for the stealth? Have we? I got like, look at this, look at these are great ideas. And they had so many of them that they started to put into the build that the problem was that every 5 minutes, but like, you know, Oracle would have to come on and give you another tutorial on how to use another piece of Bat-Kit. It was getting to the point where it was like, you'd sort of imagine he had trouble sitting on the gargoyle because he's got like a sack of just like goodies with him. That utility belt had long since met capacity. Either that or the utility belt was now like that big. It was more like a utility, I don't know, corset. He had so many things. He looked like probably a character of the 90s X-Men comics with just like pouches everywhere. So they realized that they had to trim some of that down, so they took a lot of them out. And they kept, by and large, I think there's only like a few new additions in City. But yeah, so this is the cool thing. The detective vision is actually a debugging tool that was in the original build of the game. Because what they were doing was they needed to make sure that all the characters were exhibiting the correct animations at certain points in time. And also that their pathing was in accordance with the current state, emotional state of the character. So you see this when you play in detective vision, that they go from uneasy to kind of in a panic, to sort of delirious. They're absolutely terrified because it's like, rich man in bat outfit coming to get me. That was a kind of a sudden transition between two states in my head there. I apologize. But what happened was they actually had the detective vision was a debugging tool. They could see where all the characters were, they could see where they were moving towards, and they could see what emotional state the character was in. When they actually played it in the production build, they realized it was a bit, they were like, oh, this is a bit boring now? All the cool stuff, which we could see where they were behind the walls and what emotional state they were in, has been taken out of the game. So then they had the idea, oh, we should make that a core mechanic. And that's where detective vision comes from. It's actually a debug tool that they polished up into being an actual functional element of the game's design, which is kind of funny because how many people actually play the Arkham games without turning off detective vision? Everyone seems to play Batman now as if it's some sort of like X-ray disco. It's like, it's great, I can see everything. Oh hey, look, there's a skeleton over there, there's a skeleton over there. It's like you know, Bruce Wayne's on like acid tabs or something like that. But and one of the harder things they discovered when they were working on Arkham City was trying to get people to turn it off. So they kept changing up some of the gameplay to force you to turn the detective vision off. So, with all that in mind... Sorry. I was really hoping on the assumption that the first person was all right, but so we can have another volunteer who would like to try out that first stealth level. Come on up then. Let's do it. Another round of applause. Let's see. Oh, I left that recording the whole time while I've been talking. All right. So, you remember how to play?
Not at all.
Not at all.
But I can bash.
Oh, this will be great then. This will be great.
There's more buttons and stealth, so
So,
it'll be great fun.
Let's take our time. So it's the same stealth sequence that I showed you earlier. In hindsight, I'm beginning to realise that quick 10-minute video I threw together on Sunday has actually sort of set the bar for the evening. Don't punch the chairs. Okay, so if you click the left shoulder button, you'll go into detective vision. Let's see where everybody is. 6 armed hostiles. They're all above you. That's a wall. And your job is to try and take them all out. One with a silent takedown, one with a batarang, and one with the explosive gel. Now, right now, they're all just meandering around. Wow, the frame rate is really low there. So, there we go. If you want to turn the detective vision off for a second, just so we can see what we've got. So this guy's walking on the railings by himself. He's just minding his own business. There's 2 guys over here. Okay, go for the inverted takedown. Let's see what happens. Whoop. So, already they're responding to what's happened because they've heard him yelling. Batman does the smart thing and gets away to the point he almost comes back to where he started. So let's have a look at the body. Go and have a look at where he is. Okay, there we go. They're all kind of converging. They're talking with one another. They're now actually terrified of what's happening. We throw the batarang, we cut the rope. Oh. That was a bit of an anticlimax. But they've look at this now. They're all looking in my general direction because they're like, I'm sure it came from over there somewhere. Well, don't do that. Because now he's seen you. Yep, they can see you. Oh, they've lost you now. They've lost you. It's all right. So have a little scan. Put the detective vision on. We'll see where they are now. We get 3 up here in the high railings. Now note how they've all decided to spread out and they're going their own way. Now he's not going to move because you're supposed to take him out with the explosive gel. So you could do that without being spotted. Don't jump forwards. Press A and you'll drop down. There we go. But you can also see, actually we saw that there a second ago, we could actually assess their state. And we can see that the characters are getting a bit nervous. And that's going to have an impact upon what animations are playing. Press left on the D-pad. There you go. Oh, I wouldn't explode it now. What kind of Batman are you? Well, just think. All right, now it's definitely going to blow up. There we go. He's taken out. The body's fallen over. Spread out. Find him. They've heard the noise. They're now actually shouting that they need to find out what the source of the disturbance is. So they're now navigating. They're going to navigate roughly to where they think that happened. And as you can see, the characters are beginning to converge over there on the left. 2 of them are there. So he's hanging out down there. Where's the other one? There he is. Now look at this actually. This guy is going to quickly have a look over the railing. Just double checking nothing's there. That guy, I don't have a clue what he's doing, so he's sort of hanging out just with his back to the wall thinking it's fine, this wall isn't explosive. I think he's stuck. What better time to show AI bugs? I'll maybe send over a message to Rocksteady. Right, you can take him out now? Sure, he says. Nope. Oh, press Y, silent takedown. Oh, they're on to you. Yes, Dark Knight, super stealthy. The King of the Mountain. Here we go, another attempt. He's not seen you yet. All right. Now, where's everybody else? There's still 3 left. I'm amazed that they didn't kill you already. You seem to be hanging around on the ground an awful lot, just like, I'm going to punch everybody. Who needs to worry about guns? I'm rich. It's all good. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, so here we go. The glitchy guy, you can take him out. Oh, hang on. Ooh. Oh my God. Oh. One more hit and you're a goner. Oh. You have no health. Harsh language will take you down at this point. Bad breath. Okay, still got 3 to go. And they're all hanging out together. They're really annoyed because their thug quartet has lost one man. They'll never sing properly again. No.
But he has many battles. Leg kick, all 3 at once.
So look, you've got them so worked up, they're now stuck together and they won't unglue. In fact, these two right in front of us, they're now working together. They're keeping each other's, keeping an eye on each other's back because you've got them so worked up. Oh, no. I'm wrong. Now, let's try and take one out quietly. There we go. Yeah, people will scream usually when you pull them up into the rafters unexpectedly and keep you dangling on a wire. It might be from experience, Neil, yes. Do you want to find out firsthand? Okay, down to 2. Oh, he's right there above you.
Run.
Oh! Nice effort.
Not stealth.
Nice effort. Not stealthy enough. Would anybody else like an attempt? Oh no, you already had a go. You already had a go. Brad?
Yeah.
Oh, go on then. Nobody applauds Brad. They're like, screw him.
Shut up, Neil.
All right. Now, apparently this guy's got skills. He was picking up his Batman Arkham skills earlier. Yeah, sorry, it's inverted. I don't understand people that don't use inverted. It's kind of weird. Okay, so you're going for a slightly different tactic. Sticking to the ground. Now, the thing is that they won't bother looking in those railings unless you give them cause to. Oh, here we go, changing the options. We'll cut that out in the final print. Ooh. And here we go. A railing takedown. And now we're going high. In just enough time to make sure that they pass by. But now, once again, a noise was made. They heard him scream. Everybody begins to converge roughly in that area. They're all taking different ways there, of course, except for this one little guy who decides to hang out by himself. Because you kind of want that they're not all going to, they're typically not all going to group up in the same place. Because you want to have that one guy who's sort of, you know what, I'm not going to go over there, boo-boo, I'm going to stay here. Because you think, okay. You think you're smarter than the average bear, but no. You're about to get Batmaned. Oh, here we go. How many are we down to? 3 already. Good start. Oh, you should have put explosive gel on that wall, and then when they go to check the body, you can blow it up. Ooh, different tactic. So these guys are all hanging out down the bottom. Now, sometimes we might be lucky because you realize, because what they sometimes do is they gravitate towards locations that are obvious places for you to take them out. You saw that in the first video that I did. They gravitated towards that one room where I could blow the roof and take them both out. I don't have the Sonic Batarang, I'm afraid. Sonic Batarang's an add-on that you unlock later on, which then emits a pulse, and it allows you to make the characters go towards a particular location so you can lure them into traps. Oh dear. Brad doesn't do stealth then. Screw this! We should beat them all up, that'll work. So despite the fact that we had one particular character just decide to bug out on us in an earlier demo, you kind of see largely how it works. That they will coordinate, but the thing is that I'm saying they coordinate, they're not coordinating. This is one of these kind of awesome kind of tricks that they're pulling off is you think that they're talking to each other. I found someone over here, and they all go there. No. The system that governs all these agents is telling them something happened here. They all path towards that location. However, in order to get that sense of, excitement, one of them will play a bit of audio. And sometimes, if there's two characters talking to each other, it'll just be one character deciding to play an animation which has an audio, but it requires someone to respond to it. So it says, oh, see when I'm finished doing this, I want you to say that, and he will say it in turn. That AI agent, the other one, didn't make that decision of his own accord. That's just how it works. So we're given this impression that it's a lot richer, their behavior, when it's not really. It's actually just one governing system telling them where to go at certain points in time based on events that you're causing. And it largely revolves around you trying to take people out. Trying, I think, might be the emphasised word, judging by this footage. I may have to go away and cut some extra myself. So, what will the future bring? I'm not entirely sure. I'm, naturally quite excited, what with Arkham Knight coming out next year. It'll be interesting to see how it changes given the changes to the mechanics that we've got for the game. One, that it's largely a more open world. Excuse me. Two, we have actually seen that there's vehicle-based gameplay. So there will be combat when you're in the vehicle. How does that differ? How does that mix it up? What happens if you're in the Batmobile and you're in the middle of an attack and you bail out of it? Can you bail out of it? I don't know. What if you bail out and you can attack them in a different way because you've got out of the vehicle? I'm that guy that likes to, particularly in Battlefield, for example, I like to drive up in a tank, take 2 shots in the tank, get out when they're not looking after I deploy the smoke cloud, get out, run around the back of their tank, throw C4 on it, blow it up and get back in my own tank. Well, it's still got 5% health left. You're like, I win. That'd be kind of cool. Could you do something of that ilk? Because Batman, you can jump out and then disarm their vehicles. But also, we haven't really seen much of the core gameplay mechanics in terms of combat and stealth, so it'd be kind of cool. Key point. Can't wait till next summer. And with that, we are done. Thank you.